The morning sun cast long shadows across the village of Sandspire when the screaming began. Hana pressed her small hands against her temples as the pain exploded through her skull like lightning. The crystal windows of nearby homes cracked and shattered as invisible waves of energy poured from her mind. "Make it stop," she whispered, but the words came out as a mental shriek that made every Vakari within 50 meters stumble and cry out in pain. Elder Kassan emerged from the village hall, his purple skin darkening with anger as he saw the destruction. Tables overturned in the market square. Children crying as their mothers pulled them away from the 12-year-old girl who sat alone in the center of the chaos. "Shalneth," he hissed, using the ancient word that meant cursed one. "The child brings darkness to our people once again." Hana looked up at him with large silver eyes filled with tears. She did not want to hurt anyone. She never wanted to hurt anyone. But the power inside her had a mind of its own. It came when she was scared or sad or angry, and she was always one of those things these days. "Please," she said aloud, her voice small and broken. "I did not mean to do it." "Your intentions matter nothing," Elder Kaysen replied. "Look around you. See what your curse has done." The other village elders gathered behind Kaysen. Their faces showed the same disgust and fear that Hana had seen for months now. Ever since her powers had grown stronger on her 12th birthday, the people of Sandspire treated her like a disease that might spread. "We have been patient long enough," said Elder Miran, an old female with scars across her face. "3 times, this month the child has lost control. Our windows cannot be replaced forever. Our children cannot live in fear." Hana tried to stand, but her legs shook. The psychic outburst had drained her energy like always. She felt weak and sick, but she forced herself to face the elders. "I am learning to control it," she said. "Yesterday I moved only 1 stone. I did not break anything yesterday." "One good day does not erase the damage," Kassan said. "Our ancestors knew what to do with children like you. There is wisdom in the old ways." A murmur went through the crowd that had gathered. Everyone knew what the old ways meant. Long ago, when a Vakari child was born with wild psychic powers, they were taken to the Crimson Wastes and left there. The desert killed them quickly, and the village was safe. "You cannot," said a voice from the crowd. Yuki pushed through the other villagers, her face pale with fear. At 16, she was Hana's older sister and the only person who still showed her kindness. "She is just a child, she can learn." "She has had months to learn," Kassan replied. "Instead, she grows more dangerous. This morning's display proves that she cannot be taught." "The human researchers," Yuki said quickly. "They study our people. Perhaps they know ways to help her that we do not." Elder Kassan's expression grew even darker. "We do not mix our problems with alien solutions. The humans watch us from their station, but they do not understand our ways. This is a Vakari matter." "But if they could help," Yuki insisted. "No." Kassan's mental voice boomed across the square, making everyone wince. "The decision is made. The child will be taken to the Crimson Wastes before the sun sets. Our village will be safe." Hana felt the world spinning around her. The Crimson Waste stretched for hundreds of miles in every direction from Sandspire. The sand there was red like blood, and the heat could kill in hours. Dangerous creatures lived in the deep desert, things with claws and hunger that even adult Vakari feared. "Please," she whispered. "I will try harder. I promise I will try harder." But Kassan had already turned away. Far from the village, in a research station built into the side of a rocky hill, Minho sat at his monitoring equipment and frowned at the readings on his screen. The seismic sensors showed another disturbance, from Sandspire, but this one was different, stronger, more focused. Minho was 32 years old and had spent the last 3 years on Nerion studying the Vakari people. He was fascinated by their telepathic abilities and how they used psychic energy to shape their daily lives, but these recent energy spikes worried him. "Another earthquake?" asked Do-Yun from across the small room. "No," Minho said, adjusting his instruments. This is psychic energy, very powerful and very unstable. Someone in that village is having serious problems. He pulled up the data from previous readings over the past few months. The pattern was clear. The disturbances were getting stronger and more frequent. Whatever was causing them was either getting worse or getting desperate. Should we report it? Do-hyun asked. Not yet, Minho said. Let me monitor it for a while. Longer. As the sun moved across the sky, Minho watched through his telescope as a small group left Sandspire. They walked toward the Crimson Wastes, and one of them was very small. A child. That is strange, he said to himself. Why would they take a child into the desert? He increased the magnification and saw that the small figure was a young Vakari. Girl? She walked between two adult guards, and she looked scared. Behind them, at a distance, another figure followed. This one moved carefully, staying hidden behind rocks and dunes. Minho felt something cold in his stomach. The Vakari were usually very protective of their children. They never took them into dangerous places without good reason, and the energy readings he had been tracking came from the direction of that village. Do-hyun, he called. Prepare the hoverbike. I need to investigate something. The commander said no direct contact with the natives. I am not making contact, Minho said, though he was not sure that was true. I am just observing. He grabbed his emergency pack and headed for the door. Something was very wrong in Sandspire, and that little girl was walking into one of the most dangerous places on the planet. His training told him to stay at the station and file a report. His conscience told him something different. The guards left Hana at the edge of the Crimson Wastes as the sun began to set. They gave her a small bag of water and some dried food, then walked away without looking back. She stood alone on the red sand and watched them disappear. The desert was beautiful and terrible. Red dunes stretched endlessly under a purple sky. The air was already growing cold as night approached, and strange sounds echoed from deep in the wasteland. Hana sat down on the sand and opened her mind, letting her thoughts drift toward home. She could feel Yuki's sadness like a physical pain. Her sister was hiding behind a rock formation about a mile away, torn between following and obeying the elders. Go home, sister, Hana whispered, knowing Yuki would hear her thoughts. Do not make this harder. She felt Yuki's mental sob, but her sister began walking back toward the village. Now Hana was truly alone. As darkness fell, the temperature dropped quickly. Hana wrapped her thin clothes around herself and tried not to think about the creatures that hunted in the desert at night. She closed her eyes and tried to control the fear that made her power want to explode outward. Tomorrow she would start walking deeper into the wastes. Maybe she would find water. Maybe she would find shelter. Maybe she would find a way to survive, long enough to prove that she was not a curse. But tonight, she would sit under the alien stars and remember what it felt like to have a home. The second day in the Crimson Wastes nearly killed Hana. The sun rose like a burning eye in the purple sky, and the temperature climbed fast. She had walked for hours, looking for shade or water, but found only endless red sand and sharp rocks. Her water bag was already half empty. The dried food tasted like dust in her mouth. Worst of all, her psychic abilities kept flickering unpredictably. Every time she felt scared or tired, waves of energy would pulse from her mind and disturb the sand around her feet. By midday, she could barely walk. Her legs shook with each step, and her silver eyes were clouded with exhaustion. She stumbled and fell face first into a dune, sand filling her mouth and nose. Get up, she whispered to herself. You have to get up. But her body would not obey. The heat pressed down on her like a heavy blanket. She closed her eyes and felt consciousness slipping away. From somewhere deep in her fading mind, a pulse of distress energy exploded outward. It rippled across the desert like a silent scream, calling to anything that might be listening. Something was listening. The sand around Hana began to shift and move. At first it looked like the wind was making patterns, but then shapes emerged from beneath the dunes. Long segmented bodies covered in red scales, 6 legs each, ending in curved claws. Yellow eyes that glowed with hunger. Sand crawlers. Desert. Predators that hunted by sensing movement and vibration. Hana's psychic pulse had drawn them like a dinner bell. 3 of the creatures circled her collapsed form, their claws clicking against the hard-packed sand beneath the dune. They were each the size of a large dog, with mandibles that could crack bone. Normally they avoided Vakari because telepaths could confuse their primitive minds, but Hana was too weak to focus her abilities. The largest crawler moved closer, its yellow eyes fixed on her. It opened its mandibles and made a sound like grinding stone. A sharp crack echoed across the desert. The crawler's head exploded in a spray of green fluid. Its body thrashed for a moment, then went still. "Stay back," shouted a voice in a strange accent. The remaining crawlers spun toward the sound, confused by this new threat. A figure in tan clothing stood on top of a nearby dune, holding a weapon that gleamed in the sunlight. The person was tall and moved differently than a Vakari. The skin was darker, and the build was more compact. Human Minho fired his plasma rifle, twice more, dropping the other crawlers before they could react. Then he slid down the dune and ran to where Hana lay motionless in the sand. He knelt beside her and checked for breathing. She was alive, but badly dehydrated. Her purple skin had turned pale and her lips were cracked from the heat. He pulled a water bottle from his pack and carefully lifted her head. "Easy," he said in his own language, then switched to broken Vakari. "Water. Drink small." Hana's eyes fluttered open. She saw a strange face looking down at her. The features were wrong for a Vakari. The eyes were too small and dark. The skin was brown instead of purple. But the expression was kind. She tried to speak but only made a croaking sound. The human tipped water into her mouth, just a few drops at first. It tasted better than anything she had ever experienced. "Slow," the human said in Vakari, that was clumsy but understandable. "Too much water bad?" Hana managed to nod. She studied his face as he gave her more water. She had seen humans before from a distance when they visited the village to trade, but never this close. His eyes held no fear or disgust like the Vakari elders. Only concern. "Why?" she whispered. The human tilted his head, not understanding. She tried again in the few words of human language she knew. "Why help?" His face softened. "Because you need help." It was such a simple answer that it made her want to cry. When had anyone last helped her because she needed it, not because they were forced to? "I am Minho," the human said, pointing to himself. "Hana," she replied. He nodded and helped her sit up slowly. The movement made her dizzy, but she felt stronger with the water in her system. Minho pulled out more supplies from his pack. Food tablets, medicine, and a small device that hummed softly. "Shelter," he said, pointing to a rock formation about 100 meters away. Out of sun. As he helped her stand, Hana felt something she had not experienced in months. Safety. This stranger had risked his life to save hers, and he asked for nothing in return. They walked slowly to the rocks where Minho set up a small tent in the shade. The material was strange, silvery and cool to the touch. Inside, it was much cooler than the desert air. "Rest," Minho said. "I watch." Hana lay down on the soft floor of the tent and closed her eyes. For the first time since her exile, she felt like she might actually survive. Meanwhile, hidden behind another rock formation 500 meters away, Yuki watched through a small telescope. She had followed the human from his research station, staying far enough back to avoid detection. She had seen him save her sister's life. Her hands shook as she lowered the telescope. The elders had forbidden any contact with humans. They said aliens could not understand Vakari ways, but this human had shown more kindness to Hana in 1 hour than the village had shown in months. Back at the human research station, Commander Jisoo paced angrily in front of a communication screen. Minho's face looked back at her from the display, calm but determined. "You violated direct orders," she said. "Non-interference protocols exist for good reasons." "A child was dying," Minho replied. I could not let that happen. The Vicari have their own customs. We cannot interfere with their cultural practices, even if we disagree with them. Their cultural practice was murder. Commander Jisoo sighed. She was a career military officer, used to clear rules and simple decisions. But Minho had always been different. He was a scientist first, a soldier second. His compassion often put him at odds with regulations. "Bring the child to the medical station," she said finally. "We will treat her condition and then return her to her people. They will kill her." "That is not our decision to make." Minho looked directly into the camera. "Then I will make it my decision." He ended the transmission before the commander could respond. In the tent, Hana had fallen into the first peaceful sleep she had known in days. Her psychic abilities, which had been chaotic and destructive in the village, seemed calmer here. The energy readings on Minho's instruments showed steady, controlled patterns instead of the violent spikes from before. He sat outside the tent and watched the desert. Something was different about this child. Her power was immense, far beyond what he had observed in other Vicari. But it was not evil or cursed as her people believed. It was raw and untrained, like a river that had never learned to flow in a proper channel. Maybe, with the right guidance, it could become something beautiful instead of something feared. As the sun began to set, painting the red sand in deeper shades of crimson, Minho made a decision that would change everything. He would not return Hana to the village to die. He would find a way to help her control her abilities. He would teach her that being different did not mean being cursed. From her hiding place, Yuki watched the human tend to her sister with gentle care. Tears ran down her purple cheeks as she realized that perhaps the cursed one was not Hana at all. Perhaps the curse belonged to a people who would abandon their children rather than try to understand them. 3 days after saving Hana from the sandcrawlers, Minho led her deeper into the crimson wastes to a place he had discovered months earlier. Hidden among tall, red rocks was an ancient ruin, built by some forgotten civilization. The stone walls were thick enough to block the desert heat and carved with symbols that neither human nor Vicari could read. "Safe here," Minho said as they entered the largest chamber. "No one comes here." Hana looked around at the strange carvings on the walls. Some showed star patterns. Others looked like flowing water or growing plants. The images made her feel calm in a way she had not experienced since childhood. "What is this place?" she asked in her broken human speech. "Old," Minho replied. "Very old. Before your people, before my people come here." He set down his pack and began unpacking supplies. Food, water, medical equipment, and several devices Hana did not recognize. Over the past 3 days, he had been teaching her basic human words while she taught him better Vicari. They could communicate simple ideas now. "Why you help me?" Hana asked. It was a question she had asked before, but his answer always confused her. "Because you need help," Minho said again. "Because you are not curse. My people say I curse. Your people wrong." Hana sat on a flat stone and watched him work. No one had ever told her that her people might be wrong about anything. The idea was both frightening and wonderful. "I break things," she said. "I hurt people. Is curse." Minho stopped what he was doing and sat across from her. "You scared. Fear make power go wild, not curse. Just need learn control." "How you know?" "I study your people long time. I see others like you in records. Very old records. Your ancestors, they have children with wild power too. But they teach them, help them, not abandon them." This was news to Hana. "Others like me? Yes. Records say they become great leaders, healers, builders. But that was long ago before your people become afraid." Minho pulled out a small tablet and showed her images. Ancient Vicari texts that described individuals with unusual psychic abilities. The old language was hard to read, but she could make out words like gift-bearer and mind-shaper. "They not call them curse," Minho said. "They call them blessed." Hana stared at the images until her eyes filled with tears. All her life she had been told she was wrong, broken, dangerous. But these ancient texts spoke of people like her as if they were precious. "Can you teach me?" she whispered. "I try," Minho said. "But I not have psychic power. Must learn together." That evening, as they shared a simple meal, Hana felt something she had almost forgotten: hope. Maybe she did not have to be afraid of herself anymore. Back at the human research station, Do-hyun was having second thoughts about helping his friend. He had been secretly providing supplies to Minho for 3 days, telling Commander Jisoo that the equipment was needed for geological surveys. "This is getting dangerous," he said as he loaded another pack with food and medical supplies. "The commander is asking too many questions." "Just a few more days," Minho said through the communication link. "I think I can help her." "Help her do what? Control psychic powers that you do not understand? You are not a trained therapist, Minho. You are a xenobiologist. Sometimes being human is more important than being trained." Do-hyun sighed. He had known Minho for 6 years, and the man never gave up once he decided something was right. "The commander ordered me to track your location. I told her your GPS unit was malfunctioning." "Thank you, old friend. Do not thank me yet. She is sending a patrol to find you tomorrow." Minho went quiet for a moment. "Then we need to move faster." The next morning, Minho began teaching Hana the meditation techniques he had learned during his years studying alien cultures. Human methods were different from Vikari traditions, but sometimes a fresh approach could work better than old ways. "Close eyes," he said. "Breathe slow. Feel the air go in, go out." Hana tried to follow his instructions, but her power kept stirring restlessly in her mind like a caged animal. "Cannot make it stop," she said, frustrated. "Not stop," Minho corrected. "Control. Power is like river. Cannot stop river, but can make channels for water to flow." He had her practice with small objects first: a pebble, a leaf, a cup of water. Instead of trying to suppress her abilities, he taught her to direct them carefully. "Think about moving pebble from here to there," he said, placing a small stone on the ground between them, not with force, with gentle push. Hana concentrated and the pebble lifted into the air, but instead of flying wildly across the room as it had done in the village, it drifted slowly from one spot to another. "I did it," she whispered in amazement. "Yes. You have great control when you're not afraid." They practiced for hours, moving objects, lifting water, even reshaping small pieces of clay. Each success made Hana more confident, and each boost in confidence made her control stronger. On the 4th day, they received an unexpected visitor. Seora crouched behind a rock, outcropping, watching the ancient ruins through her scope. She was the village's best tracker and hunter, sent by Elder Kassan to find the cursed child and eliminate the problem permanently. She had been following the human's trail for 2 days, but what she saw through her scope made her hesitate. The human was teaching the girl, and the girl was learning. Seora watched as Hana used her abilities to stack stones into a perfect tower, then gently take them apart and stack them again. There was no wild energy, no destruction, just careful, controlled movement. Seora lowered her weapon. She had a brother once, 15 years ago. Jemin had been born with abilities like Hana's. The elders had declared him cursed too, and taken him to the desert to die. Seora had been too young and too afraid to speak against them. She had regretted it every day since. Now she watched this human do what she had been too scared to do for her own brother. He was teaching the child that her abilities were not a curse to be feared, but a gift to be understood. "Keeper of light," Hana said to Minho as they rested in the shade. She had started using this term for him, and he had learned it meant someone who brings hope to darkness. "What you call me?" Minho asked. "Keeper of light." In old language. "You keep light when all is dark." Minho smiled. "You keep light too, Hana. You just learning to see it." As the sun set behind the red rocks, Seora made a decision. She activated her communication device and sent a message back to the village. "Target not found. Continuing search." It was a lie, but it was the right lie. Some things were more important than following orders. Some children deserved a chance to grow into the gifts they carried, instead of dying for them. She settled in to watch and wait. If anyone else came hunting for Hana, they would have to go through her first. In the ruins, Hana practiced her exercises as Minho prepared their evening meal. For the first time in her life, she looked forward to tomorrow instead of fearing it. She was learning that the power inside her was not a monster to be caged. It was a part of herself that needed understanding and patience. With the right teacher and enough time, maybe she could become what the ancient texts described. Not a curse, but a blessing waiting to unfold. On the 7th day in the ruins, Hana woke to the sound of whispered voices outside the ancient chamber. She sat up quickly, fear making her power stir in her mind like an angry beast. But Minho placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "Friends," he said quietly. "Young ones from your village." Hana crept to the entrance and peered outside. 3 Vakari teenagers stood nervously in the morning light. She recognized them immediately. Cumin, who was 14 and had always been kind to her. Nari, a girl her own age who lived near the village well. And Sunho, Cumin's younger brother. "Hana," Cumin called softly. "We know you are here. We want to talk." Minho nodded to her. "Is safe. I watch while you sleep. They come alone." Hana stepped outside, and the 3 young Vakari stared at her in amazement. She looked different than when she had left the village. Calmer, stronger. Her silver eyes held confidence instead of fear. "You're alive," Nari whispered. "We thought the desert would kill you." "The human saved me," Hana said, gesturing to Minho. "He teaches me control." "The elders say humans cannot understand our ways," Sunho said. He was only 10 years old and spoke with the uncertainty of a child repeating adult words. "The elders say many things," Hana replied. "Some things they say are wrong." She looked at her old friends and made a decision. "Would you like to see what I have learned?" The 3 young Vakari exchanged glances, then nodded. Hana walked to a pile of stones near the ruins. She closed her eyes and breathed slowly, using the techniques Minho had taught her. Her power rose gently like warm water instead of burning fire. She lifted her hands and the stones began to move, but instead of flying wildly through the air, they danced. Each stone moved in perfect harmony with the others, creating patterns in the air like a beautiful song made visible. The teenagers watched in wonder as Hana guided the stones through complex shapes and designs before setting them down gently in a neat circle. "How?" Cumin breathed. "Practice," Hana said, "and someone who believed I could learn." Over the next few hours, the young visitors watched as Minho continued Hana's training. They saw her move water from one container to another without spilling a drop. They watched her reshape clay into intricate sculptures using only her mind. Most amazing of all, they felt the peace in her thoughts instead of the chaos that used to make their heads hurt. "This is not the curse the elders described," Nari said to Cumin quietly. "No," he agreed. "This is something else entirely." When the teenagers prepared to leave, Cumin stayed behind for a moment. "There are others," he told Hana. "Young ones in the village who have strange dreams or can move small objects when they sleep. The elders watch them carefully now, looking for signs of the curse." Hana felt cold despite the desert heat. "They will do to them what they did to me. Maybe. Unless someone shows them a different way." That evening, as Minho prepared their meal, a new visitor arrived at the ruins. Dr. Sohee stepped carefully through the rocks, following the directions Doyun had secretly provided. She was a xenopsychologist from Earth, sent to study alien mental abilities. "Dr. Kim," she said, using Minho's formal name. "I came as quickly as I could." Minho stood and bowed slightly. "Dr. Park, thank you for coming." Hana watched nervously as the new human approached. Dr. Sohee was smaller than Minho, with gray hair and kind eyes behind thick glasses. She carried a bag full of strange instruments. "This is Hana," Minho said in Korean. then switched to Vakari. Hana, this is Dr. Sohi. She studies minds like yours. Dr. Sohi knelt down to Hana's eye level. Hello, Hana. Minho tells me you have been learning wonderful things. Over the next 2 days, Dr. Sohi ran careful tests on Hana's abilities. She used instruments that measured brain activity and psychic energy output. What she discovered amazed her. Her neural pathways are completely unique, she explained to Minho as they watched Hana practice moving water patterns. She can process and channel psychic energy at levels I have never seen before. Her brain has evolved beyond typical Vakari capabilities. So she is not cursed? Cursed? She is the opposite of cursed. She represents the next step in Vakari evolution. Her abilities could revolutionize their entire civilization. Dr. Sohi showed Minho her readings. Look at these energy patterns. With proper training, she could potentially control weather systems, find underground water sources, even heal damaged ecosystems. The applications are limitless. But her people fear her because they do not understand what she represents. For generations, they have been destroying their own evolutionary advantage out of fear. Their conversation was interrupted by the sound of approaching vehicles. Hoverbikes appeared over the rocky horizon, moving fast toward the ruins. Minho grabbed his telescope and counted 6 riders, all armed. All Elder Kassan, he said grimly, and his warriors. Dr. Sohi quickly packed her instruments. We need to get Hana away from here. But it was too late. The Vakari riders surrounded the ruins before they could escape. Elder Kassan dismounted from his bike, his face dark with anger. Behind him came 5 armed warriors, including 2 that Hana recognized as her former neighbors. Enough, Kassan shouted in his booming mental voice. This contamination ends now. Minho stepped protectively in front of Hana. She has done nothing wrong. She exists, Kassan replied. That is wrong enough. And you, alien, have poisoned her with your unnatural teachings. I have taught her control. You have taught her to hide her curse better. But we know what she is. What she will become if allowed to grow stronger. More figures appeared at the edge of the ruins. Yuki arrived, having followed the warriors from the village. Behind her came Siora, no longer hiding her presence. And to everyone's surprise, Cumin and several other young Vakari emerged from behind the rocks. She saved us, Cumin said loudly, his young voice carrying across the desert air. Elder Kassan turned to him with fury. What did you say, boy? 3 days ago, Jinwoo and Mina got lost in a sandstorm near the old mining tunnels. Hana felt their fear from here. She guided them home with her mind through the storm over 20 miles away. Without her, they would have died. Lies, Kassan snarled. Not lies, said another voice. Jinwoo's mother stepped forward, tears in her eyes. My son told me. The cursed girl saved his life. Murmurs went through the group of warriors. Some looked uncertain now. Elder Kassan raised his weapon, a plasma rifle similar to the humans. It does not matter. She is too dangerous to live, and these aliens have violated our world with their interference. Wait, Dr. Sohi said, stepping forward with her tablet. Before you make a decision that cannot be undone, look at this data. She held up her readings, showing the complex patterns of Hana's abilities. This child could solve your planet's greatest problems, the drought in the southern regions, the failing crystal mines, the dust storms that destroy your crops. Her abilities could heal your world instead of harming it. Elder Kassan looked at the data, but his expression did not change. Alien science means nothing to us. Then listen to your own people, Minho said. He pulled out the ancient texts he had shown Hana. Your own ancestors valued children like her. They called them blessed, not cursed. Ancient superstitions, or ancient wisdom that you have forgotten. The tension grew thicker as the 2 groups faced each other. Hana stood between them all, feeling the weight of everyone's expectations and fears. Her power stirred restlessly, responding to the emotional chaos around her. This was the moment that would decide everything. Would fear win, as it had for so many generations? Or would hope finally have its chance to grow? Hana looked at Minho, who had risked everything to save her, at Dr. Sohee, who saw potential instead of problems, at the young Vakari who had come to witness her truth, at Sayora, who had chosen protection over orders. She took a deep breath and stepped forward, ready to show them all what she had learned. Hana stood in the center of the ancient ruins, surrounded by the most important moment of her life. Elder Kassan pointed his weapon at her, while Minho stepped protectively beside her. The young Vakari who had come to support her watched with frightened eyes. Dr. Sohee held her scientific readings like a shield of truth. Inside Hana's mind, her power roared like a storm. Every emotion in the area fed into it. Kassan's hatred, Minho's determination, Yuki's love, the fear and confusion of the warriors. All of it swirled together, begging to be released in one massive explosion of psychic force. She could do it. She could unleash everything and scatter her enemies like leaves in the wind. The old Hana, the frightened village girl, would have done exactly that, but she was not that girl anymore. "I will not fight you," Hana said clearly, her voice carrying across the desert air. Elder Kassan sneered. "Because you know you will lose." "No," Hana replied, "because I know I will win, and winning by destroying you would make me the monster you say I am." Instead of releasing her power outward, Hana drew it inward. She wrapped her abilities around herself and the humans like a protective shell. The air around them shimmered with barely visible energy. "You want to kill me because you fear what I might do," she continued. "But I choose what I do. And I choose not to hurt anyone." She raised her hands and her power flowed outward in gentle waves. But instead of destruction, it brought calm. The angry energy that had been building in the warriors' minds began to fade. Even Elder Kassan's hand trembled, as his rage was replaced by confused peace. "This is what my power really does," Hana said. "When I am not afraid, when I am not angry, it heals instead of harms." She gestured toward the ancient carvings on the walls around them. Under the influence of her controlled abilities, the old symbols began to glow with soft light. Images of flowing water, growing plants, and peaceful minds became visible, as if painted with starlight. "The old ones knew," she said. "People like me were meant to help, not hurt." Dr. Sohee stepped forward, her tablet displaying the energy readings. "Look at the patterns," she said to Elder Kassan. "This is not chaotic destruction. This is organized, purposeful energy that could transform your entire world." "She already has transformed it," said a new voice. Everyone turned to see an old Vakari, woman walking slowly through the rocks. She was ancient, her purple skin wrinkled with age, but her silver eyes were sharp and clear. "Elder Heron," Kassan said with surprise, "you should not be here." "I go where I am needed," the old woman replied, "and I am needed here to tell the truth that our people have forgotten." Elder Heron was the oldest living Vakari, keeper of the most ancient knowledge. Even Kassan showed her respect. 60 years ago, she began. "My grandmother told me stories. Her grandmother had told her. Stories of the gift-bearers who could speak to the deep waters and make the red storms calm. We called them blessed children then." She walked closer to Hana, studying her with eyes full of memory. "The fear began when we stopped teaching them. When we decided it was easier to destroy what we did not understand than to learn from it. But the gift was never meant to be feared." "The old ways were wrong," Kassan insisted, though his voice held less certainty than before. "Were they?" Elder Heron asked. "Look around you, Kassan. Our wells run dry while this child can find water deep, underground. Our young people leave for other worlds because they see no future here. Our crystal minds fail while she could teach us to grow new ones. We destroy our greatest hope and call it wisdom." Sayora stepped forward from where she had been watching. "She speaks truth. I have watched this child for days. She saved 3 lost children with her abilities. She could have killed me 20 times, but instead she lets me see that my brother died for nothing. Your brother was cursed, Kassan said. My brother was 8 years old, Seora replied, her voice breaking. He could make flowers bloom in winter and find lost animals with his mind. We killed him because we were afraid of beauty we did not understand. More voices joined the conversation. The warriors began to lower their weapons as doubt crept into their minds. Some of them had children at home. Some had seen the drought and the failing crops. Some remembered their own childhood dreams of having special abilities. Cumin spoke, up from where he stood with the other young Vicari. There are others like her in the village, young ones who hide their gifts because they are afraid. What happens to them now? Elder Kassan looked around at all the faces watching him. His certainty was cracking like old stone under pressure. The law is clear. The cursed cannot be allowed to live. Then change the law, Minho said simply. Humans do not make laws for Vicari. No, but Vicari can make new laws for themselves. Your people are not unchanging rocks. They can grow and learn, just like Hana has grown and learned. Dr. Sohi held up her tablet again. The data shows that abilities like Hana's appear in roughly 1 out of every 1,000 Vicari births. You have been destroying 0.1% of your population for generations. That is thousands of potential healers, builders, and leaders lost to fear. Thousands of my brothers and sisters, Hana added quietly. Thousands of children who died alone in the desert because no one taught them that they were gifts instead of curses. The weight of those words settled over everyone present. Even Elder Kassan seemed to stagger under the realization of what his people had done. Elder Heron walked over to Hana and placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. Show them, child. Show them what you have become. Hana nodded and closed her eyes. Her power rose again, but this time it flowed outward in waves of pure healing energy. Dead plants in the rocky ground began to sprout new growth. Cracks in the ancient stone walls sealed themselves. The air itself seemed to become cleaner and easier to breathe. Most importantly, she reached out with her mind and found the underground river that flowed beneath their feet. She gently guided some of its water upward, and a spring bubbled too. Life in the center of the ruins. Clear, clean water in the heart of the desert. When she opened her eyes, everyone was staring in wonder. This is what we have been throwing away, Elder Heron said. This is what we have been calling cursed. Elder, Kassan lowered his weapon completely. His face showed the struggle of a man whose entire worldview was crumbling and being rebuilt at the same time. If we are wrong, he said slowly, if we have been wrong for so long, then how do we make it right? We start with her, Yuki said, stepping forward to embrace her sister. We start by bringing Hana home. And then, Dr. Sohi added, we work together to find and help the other children before fear destroys them too. Will you come back? Cumin asked Hana. Will you teach us what the human taught you? Hana looked at Minho, who smiled and nodded encouragingly. Yes, she said. I will come home, but not as the cursed child who was cast out. I return as who I really am. And who is that? Elder Kassan asked. Hana stood tall, her silver eyes bright, with confidence and hope. Around her, the spring bubbled with life-giving water, and new plants pushed through the desert soil. I am Hana, she said, keeper of the gift, teacher of the lost, bringer of hope to those who have forgotten how to see it. She looked at each person present from the eldest to the youngest. And I am ready to help my people remember what they were always meant to be. 6 months later, Minho sat in the new, cultural center built between the Human Research Station and the village of Sandspire. Through the window, he could see Hana working with a group of young Vicari, teaching them to control abilities that would have gotten them killed just a year ago. The desert around the village was green now, fed by the springs that Hana and her students had coaxed from the deep earth. The crystal mines produced more than they had in decades, guided by precise psychic manipulation. The dust storms that used to destroy crops were turned aside by coordinated mental effort. Most importantly, no child had been taken to the Crimson Wastes to die. The Vakari had voted to change their ancient laws. What was once called Shalneth the Cursed was now called Nolthara, the Blessed Gift. Hana had grown taller and stronger, but she still called Minho her keeper of light. And when young Vakari asked her how she learned to control her abilities, she always told them the same thing. A human saw hope where everyone else saw a curse. He taught me that being different does not mean being wrong. It means being ready to become something beautiful. The planet that had once called her a curse now called her something else entirely. They called her hope.